This episode is an ESL listening practice for intermediate learners. You will hear a natural conversation with clear pronunciation and everyday English. No tests, no pressure, just listening. Let's start.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling something that's probably one of the most requested topics we've ever had. It's that question that hits you in those quiet moments, maybe after another relationship has ended in a familiar way. You look back, you see the pattern, and you just ask yourself that one single agonizing question: why does this keep happening to me?
It's that feeling of romantic deja vu, isn't it? The relationship rut. You know, you meet someone new, everything on the surface feels different. New person, new stories, new job. But then somehow the ending is the same. The core feeling of dissatisfaction or instability, it repeats itself. It's almost chilling.
And today, our deep dive is going to push us way past the easy answer, which is just, bad luck.
Right. Because the sources we're looking at today, this analysis compiled in project.docs, it makes it very clear that this is rarely, if ever, random.
Okay, so let's set up the mission for this deep dive. We are not here to just list red flags or debate dating apps. We're doing a kind of psychological audit. We want to understand the non-random patterns that drive us toward these same outcomes again and again.
And that's the whole point. We want to help you move from being a passive participant, asking why this happens to you, to an active observer who understands why you're subconsciously choosing it.
That's a big shift in perspective.
It is. And the core insight from the material is, honestly, it can be a tough pill to swallow at first. The solution isn't about finding that one right person out there who's going to magically fix everything. The solution is internal. It's about recognizing and then changing the powerful patterns of attraction and, crucially, of tolerance that you carry around with you.
And these patterns are so deep, right? They feel like instinct, they feel like chemistry, or even destiny.
Exactly. They're like an unconscious compass. And it often points directly back to the very things we say we want to escape.
So we need to flip the script. But to do that, you have to know what the original script even says. Let's start there at our first segment with what I think is just the biggest paradox in all of this: the comfort of the familiar, even when that familiar is pain. All right, let's dive right in, because this is where our conscious mind and our subconscious drives just completely split apart. One of the sources states it so plainly: we are drawn to what feels familiar, not what's healthy. And to anyone listening, it sounds crazy. Why would you ever seek out something that's hurt you before?
Because there's a huge miscommunication happening inside of us. Your conscious mind, the part that makes plans and has goals, wants health and happiness. But your subconscious, your nervous system, it doesn't really operate on a happy versus sad scale. It operates on a known versus unknown scale.
Okay, so known equals safe, even if known is objectively bad for you.
Precisely. Think about it. When you're a child, your emotional environment, whatever it was, chaotic, distant, warm, inconsistent, that was your world. You had to learn to survive in it. So that environment, by default, becomes the blueprint for what home or relationship feels like on a deep physiological level.
So if my childhood was, say, emotionally chaotic, full of ups and downs, my subconscious basically says, oh, I recognize this landscape. I know the rules here. And that recognition feels like attraction.
Absolutely. Your heart, or, more accurately, your limbic system, it recognizes a pattern way faster than your conscious brain can sit down and analyze the long-term consequences. So someone who shows up and is just completely stable, predictable, emotionally available, that can actually trigger a subconscious alarm.
Because it's foreign territory.
It's totally foreign. It can feel boring or risky or just weird. Because your internal playbook has all these strategies for handling drama and inconsistency, but it has no pages for how to handle total peace. The known discomfort feels safer than the unknown good.
And this is the origin of the pattern. The source material gets really specific about 3 key elements from our early life that shape this: chaos, distance, or inconsistency. Can we just unpack what those actually look like in a modern dating relationship? Because I think people will really recognize them.
We have to. This is where it gets real. Let's start with inconsistency. This is maybe the most addictive and confusing one in dating today. If, as a kid, affection or attention was sporadic, sometimes you got it, sometimes it was withdrawn for no clear reason, you get conditioned to what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement.
That's the same principle behind a slot machine, isn't it? The unpredictability of the reward is what keeps you pulling the lever.
It's exactly the same. It is highly, highly addictive. So in an adult relationship, this looks like the classic hot and cold partner. They're all in for a few days, texting constantly, making you feel like the center of the universe, and then poof, they vanish for a week.
Or they make amazing future plans with you, and you get all excited, and then they cancel at the last minute with a casual text.
Yes. And what does that do to you? You spend all your time and mental energy trying to figure them out, waiting for the next reward, the next text, the next sign of affection. You're constantly on edge.
And when that reward finally comes, the relief is just massive.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And that cycle, the buildup of anxiety, followed by the dopamine hit of relief, it feels incredibly intense. It feels vital. You mistake the effort you're putting into just getting their attention for the depth of your passion for them, when really it's just the intensity of an addiction to a pattern.
And a predictable, stable person.
Yeah.
They're just giving you consistent affection. There's no anxiety release cycle, so it feels flat, like something's missing.
The chase is missing. And if you've been trained to believe the chase is the relationship, then its absence feels like a lack of love.
Wow. Okay, what about the second one? Distance.
So, if a primary caregiver was emotionally or even physically absent, or if affection was rare, you learn that love is something you have to work very hard to get. That effort, that seeking, becomes synonymous with connection. In adult relationships, this translates into a powerful attraction to people who are, well, unavailable.
In very concrete ways, like dating someone who's married or lives in another country.
Or travels constantly for work, or, and this is the most common one, someone who is just emotionally walled off. A classic emotionally unavailable person. You spend your time trying to get them to open up, to connect, to be vulnerable.
And that struggle feels like proof of how much you care. You think, I must really love them if I'm trying this hard.
Exactly. And subconsciously, that distance feels safe. Because real, sustained intimacy and vulnerability, that's terrifying if you're not used to it. The familiar ache of longing for someone distant is actually preferable to the unknown terror of someone being truly, fully present with you.
Okay, and that leaves the last one, chaos.
If your early environment was full of emotional volatility, big fights, lots of drama, maybe instability from substance abuse or something similar, a high-tension environment just feels normal. Peace feels suspicious.
So in a relationship, this looks like constant drama. The big blow-up fights, followed by the incredibly passionate reconciliations.
Yes. The makeup sex, the tearful apologies, the grand gestures after a huge argument. Those moments of intense repair are programmed into you as the peak moments of connection. When things are quiet and calm, a person conditioned to chaos feels bored, restless. I might even pick a fight just to generate that familiar energy.
It's just an astonishing paradox, isn't it? The very dynamic that caused you so much pain as a child becomes the thing you seek out because it provides this strange, twisted sense of safety.
It's the core hurdle we have to get over. Your brain wants peace, but your nervous system is running a program that says, if there's no drama, if I'm not fighting for it, it must not be real love. We're basically talking about a low-grade physiological addiction to stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. A calm relationship doesn't provide that hit, so the body misreads the absence of stress as an absence of passion.
So how do you even begin to override that when your body is screaming, yes, to the familiar, painful thing? How does your conscious mind win that fight?
The first step is just awareness. It's about intellectualizing the feeling. When you meet someone new and your heart starts racing and you get those sweaty palms, you have to learn to pause. You have to stop and ask yourself a new question. Is this genuine excitement for a healthy future? Or is this just my system recognizing a familiar challenge that I already know how to lose?
That one question changes everything. And it leads us perfectly into our next segment, because that's the moment where we mistake a pattern for destiny. That's the confusion between chemistry versus compatibility. Okay, this is probably the biggest myth in modern dating, and you see it everywhere, in movies and songs. This idea that you need that instant, powerful spark, that overwhelming chemistry.
And our sources just come in and dismantle that idea completely. They argue that what we call chemistry so often is really just a product of uncertainty, of emotional unpredictability. Basically, it's just a fancy word for anxiety.
I want to really zero in on one quote from the material, because I think for so many people listening, this will be a massive aha moment.
Yeah.
The quote is, butterflies don't always mean love. Sometimes they mean anxiety.
It's so powerful because it's physically true. When you feel those butterflies, what is actually happening in your body? Your stomach is churning, your nervous system is activated, you're in a low-grade state of fight or flight. Why? Are you nervous? They won't text back. Are you worried about saying the wrong thing?
Are you on edge waiting for the other shoe to drop because their behavior is so inconsistent?
Exactly. That visceral feeling consumes your attention, so it feels powerful. But it's the power of stress, not the power of connection. It's your system being on high alert, not being at peace.
But let me push back a little here because I can hear people thinking this. Are we saying love should be boring? If everything is calm and predictable from day one, where's the romance? Where's the excitement?
That's a fantastic and really important question. We have culturally decided that predictable means dull. That's not what we're saying. We're not advocating for dating someone who bores you. We're advocating for dating someone who feels safe.
Okay, what's the difference?
The difference is where the effort goes. Anxiety-driven chemistry makes you work incredibly hard to achieve temporary feelings of safety. You have to decode them, win them over, earn their affection for a little while. True compatibility is the feeling of effortless safety that is there from the very beginning.
So the feeling in your body is completely different. Anxious chemistry is vigilance and overanalyzing everything. So what does the calm growth of stability feel like, physically?
Physically, it's the ability to exhale, to relax your shoulders. Psychologically, it's the absence of noise. You're not constantly running scenarios in your head about where you stand. You stop rereading their texts, trying to find hidden meanings. You just trust them. And it frees up this enormous amount of mental energy that you were previously spending just managing the relationship. You can focus on your own life again.
I think a lot of us, especially if we're used to chaos, mistake that quiet for a lack of a spark. Because it doesn't have the dramatic highs and lows, we assume it must not be deep.
Exactly. Compatibility is quiet. The research describes it as something that grows slowly. It's built on things like shared values, mutual respect, reliable communication. None of those things give you that immediate, intense dopamine rush that inconsistency does.
So if you're hooked on the volatility, you might actually sabotage a good, compatible relationship because it just doesn't feel intense enough to be real love.
People do it all the time. They'll pick a fight or pull away from the secure partner just to generate that familiar, anxious energy they've been taught to confuse with passion. Compatibility is so easy to overlook because it doesn't demand your constant attention. It's built on a foundation of steady kindness. It's being able to just sit in comfortable silence with someone, knowing you're seen and they're not going anywhere.
Whereas the anxiety chemistry is all about performance. You're trying to be the best, most charming version of yourself to win the prize.
And with compatibility, you can just be yourself consistently, as can they. It's a profound shift in what you're looking for. You have to re-educate your system to understand that the feeling of calm is the ultimate green flag. It's not a red flag for boredom.
It's choosing maturity over the familiar comfort of the pattern.
It is. It's deciding to stop accepting applications only from people who trigger your panic response. Because if you do that, you are structurally preventing stability from ever having a chance to grow.
You're choosing the reliable, steady warmth of a hearth over a dramatic but ultimately destructive lightning strike.
Well said.
And often, that anxiety is fueled by another powerful illusion, the idea of who a person could be. Which brings us right to our third segment, the trap of potential versus reality. This one is such a huge trap, especially for people who are naturally optimistic, who like to see the best in others. You're not falling in love with the person in front of you, you're falling in love with who they could be.
You're essentially dating a projection, a ghost. You've built this beautiful, idealized future in your mind with a version of your partner that doesn't actually exist in the present. And, seeing potential in people is a wonderful, generous quality in life. But in this specific context, it becomes a tool for avoiding a very painful reality.
You see the raw materials, right? They're smart or funny or ambitious, and you think, I can work with this. The relationship becomes a project, and you become the project manager.
And your emotional labor is the currency you're spending. The sources hammer home this one critical distinction, and if you're listening, this should become your mantra. Potential does not build relationships. Behavior does.
Say that again, that's so important.
Potential does not build relationships. Behavior does. Potential is just an idea. It's an unproven theory. Behavior is data. It's hard evidence of how someone consistently shows up for you, how they treat you today, how they handle conflict this week.
So if their present-day behavior is, disrespectful and neglectful, but you feel like their potential is huge, maybe they talk a big game about changing, we give way more weight to the potential than to the facts on the ground.
We do, because our own biases kick in. Once you've invested your hope and energy into this future version of them, you fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy. You start thinking, well, I've already spent a year waiting for them to get it together. If I leave now, all that effort, all that pain was for nothing.
So the fear of admitting the investment was a mistake keeps you locked into making the same mistake over and over.
You double down. And then confirmation bias takes over. You start actively looking for any tiny scrap of evidence that supports your belief in their potential. They ignore you for 2 weeks and then do one small, nice thing. You seize on that one thing as definitive proof that they're changing, and you dismiss the 2 weeks of neglect as just a bad patch. You're essentially dating the 5% of good behavior and completely ignoring the 95% reality.
This feeds directly into another quote from the material that just floored me. Loving someone's future while suffering their present keeps you stuck. What does that stuckness look like in real life?
It means you can't set real boundaries. Because if you truly believe they're on the verge of some great transformation, you won't do anything that might, rock the boat. You think, I can't bring this up now, it might scare them off right when they were about to change. So you tolerate the unacceptable over and over again. You're holding your own life hostage for a future that may never come.
And the focus is all external. It's all about fixing them, managing them, waiting for them. It allows you to avoid the internal work.
It's a way of avoiding the terrifying truth, which is that you have the power to leave. It's easier to believe you can change them than it is to accept you have to change your situation. It's exhausting. The emotional energy it takes to maintain hope in a relationship that is fundamentally not working right now is just immense.
And the other person.
Yeah.
They're often just living their life totally unaware of this grand, idealized script you've written for them in your head.
Right. And it creates this impossible dynamic. A relationship based on potential can only succeed if one person fundamentally changes who they are. That's not a partnership. A healthy relationship works now, with the two people who are in it now. And it allows for natural, organic growth together, not a forced transformation project.
So if you find yourself constantly playing the role of manager of their potential, that's the red flag right there.
That's the biggest red flag. The energy has to shift away from trying to change them and toward changing what you're willing to tolerate.
And that internal shift from fixing them to fixing your own boundaries brings us to the really deep stuff in segment 4, the internal barriers, fear, and our own unresolved wounds. Okay, so we've got the root cause, which is familiarity. We've got the fuel, which is this confusion about chemistry and potential. Now we need to talk about the glue that holds this whole painful structure together. And that glue, overwhelmingly, is fear. Let's start with the big one. The fear of being alone.
This fear is so primal, and it is probably the single most powerful reason people betray their own standards. The sources call it a standard lowerer, and they have this line: loneliness can make red flags look smaller. When you're facing that deep, echoing silence of being by yourself, the anxiety can be so overwhelming that the constant low-grade pain of a bad relationship actually seems like the better option.
The red flags don't just look smaller, you actively explain them away. Inconsistency becomes they're just really busy with work. Rudeness becomes they're just complicated and deep.
You become their defense attorney. You rewrite the narrative to make their bad behavior acceptable, all to avoid the alternative of being alone.
And that's the internal math we're doing, isn't it? When the fear of being alone outweighs the fear of being hurt in this specific way, you will tolerate almost anything.
You will. You settle. And you hope that your love, your patience, your effort will somehow fix the problems that a clear, firm boundary should have stopped on day one. You're trading your self-respect in the present for the illusion of companionship in the future.
But the cost is enormous. You're swapping the sharp but temporary pain of a breakup for a chronic, dull, cumulative pain that just erodes you over time.
Which is why this next insight from the sources is so critical, and it feels so counterintuitive, but you have to let it sink in. Staying alone for a while often hurts less than staying in the wrong relationship. The pain of being alone is acute, but it's finite. It passes. And it gives you the space to heal, to reflect, to remember who you are. The pain of the wrong relationship is a death by 1,000 cuts. It chips away at your self-esteem every single day with tiny betrayals, little moments of neglect. The wound never closes because it's constantly being poked.
So if you can reframe being alone, not as a failure, but as a necessary reset period, a calibration, then suddenly you have the power to actually enforce your standards.
That's it, exactly. Time alone is an investment in your future self. It's where you learn that you can be the source of your own peace and validation. You don't need to outsource it. If you just jump from one bad situation to the next without that time, you're just carrying the same unhealed patterns with you.
And that brings us to the deepest layer of this, the subconscious need to replay unresolved emotional wounds. This goes beyond just familiarity. This is about trying to rewrite history.
This is where it gets very deep. We often, without realizing it, pick partners who are specialists in recreating the dynamics of our earliest emotional injuries. Usually, this goes back to a dynamic with a parent. For example, if you had a parent who was emotionally distant and you always felt like you had to earn their love, you will be powerfully magnetically drawn to partners who are emotionally distant.
And the unconscious hope is that this time, it will be different. This new person, who's a stand-in for the original source of the wound, will finally choose you. They'll finally stay. They will finally give you the unconditional love you never got.
And if they do, the subconscious thinks it will retroactively heal the original wound. It will prove you were worthy of love all along.
It's this desperate unconscious attempt to win a game you lost as a child, but using a new player.
A futile attempt. Because you are choosing a partner who is an expert at the very dynamic that hurts you. They are going to abandon you or be distant. Because that is who they are. That is why you chose them. The relationship becomes less about loving the actual person in front of you and more about achieving this psychological victory over your own past.
And of course, the new partner isn't responsible for your childhood wounds. They're just being themselves, acting out their own patterns, and it inevitably ends in the same painful way.
The cycle repeats because you are choosing the dynamic over the person. You're not looking for a secure partner. You are looking for a partner who is capable of triggering your wound so you can have another chance to fix it. And this is where the sources give us the most important lesson of all. Healing doesn't come from repeating pain. It comes from understanding it. You have to understand the script before you can ever hope to change it.
If you don't know you're running an abandonment script, you'll just keep casting actors who are brilliant at abandoning people.
The pattern doesn't break when you find the right person. It breaks when you do the hard work of self-awareness.
And that internal shift is the whole game. It's the moment everything can change. Which leads us to our final segment, the shift that changes everything. Okay, we've walked through the entire architecture of the pattern, where it comes from, what feeds it, what keeps it in place. Now let's talk about how to dismantle it. And the sources give us this incredibly powerful, actionable core truth. It's this: the pattern doesn't break when you finally meet the right person. It breaks when you change what you tolerate.
This is the moment of empowerment. This is where you take your agency back. It moves the entire focus from out there searching to in here building. It means getting crystal clear on your non-negotiable boundaries, what you absolutely need to feel safe and respected, and then, and this is the key, enforcing them immediately without giving second, third, and fourth chances.
So if a partner violates one of your core boundaries, their potential doesn't matter anymore. The conversation ends.
The conversation ends. And what the sources warn us about, which is so important, is that choosing this new way will feel incredibly uncomfortable at first. It will feel wrong.
Because you're rejecting what's familiar.
You are. We talked about how a healthy, stable relationship can feel boring if you're conditioned to chaos. If your whole system is calibrated for the drama of a roller coaster, the steady, gentle pace of a calm lake feels like nothing is happening. You might even interpret the absence of anxiety as a lack of connection or spark.
This is the vital reframing we have to do. We have to consciously relabel the feeling. And the source material offers this beautiful reframe. Peace isn't boring, it's unfamiliar.
That's it. If chaos was your normal, peace feels abnormal. And when something feels like normal, our subconscious alarm system goes off. It starts screaming, "Warning, this is weird. Where's the fight? Where's the drama? This can't be right." The real work is learning to sit with that uncomfortable feeling of unfamiliar peace and consciously choose it. To tell yourself, this quiet, this stability, this isn't a sign the relationship is failing. This is proof that it's working.
The absence of anxiety is not a lack of passion. It's proof of security.
It's proof of security.
So what does that look like in practice? When you feel that pull toward the exciting, volatile person, and you feel bored by the kind, reliable one, how do you override that alarm system?
It takes conscious, deliberate effort. You have to find new things to define as exciting. Instead of the high you get from the anxious chase, you have to learn to find the thrill in stability. The quiet excitement of being deeply known and fully accepted. The exhilaration of building a future together without constant drama. The profound relief of knowing your energy isn't going toward conflict management anymore.
So what are some concrete strategies?
Okay, 3 things. First, awareness in the moment. When you feel that intense chemistry spark, you have to pause. Literally take a breath. And ask yourself, does this feeling make me feel expanded and calm or contracted and vigilant? If the answer is vigilant, you know you're in the old pattern and you have to consciously slow things down.
That's like a circuit breaker for the stress response.
Yeah, exactly. Second, radical boundary setting. Define your top 3 non-negotiables. It might be consistent communication or respect during disagreements or emotional availability. And here's the hard part. When someone violates one, you enforce the boundary. You don't try to teach them or fix them. The boundary is for you, not for them.
So if consistent communication is a boundary and they disappear for 3 days and then pop back up with a "hey you" text,
Yeah.
you don't engage.
You don't. You enforce the boundary, which probably means ending that connection. You choose the short-term pain of that ending over the long-term corrosive pain of compromising your needs. And third, and this is the hardest, embracing unfamiliar peace. You have to actively practice enjoying the quiet. Savor the moments of a secure connection. The easy conversation, the reliable text back, the absence of drama. You have to let your nervous system learn, through repetition, that this feeling of ease is the new goal. This is what real love feels like.
It's learning that steady kindness and predictability are the real signs of depth, not the grand, dramatic gestures that usually come after a big fight.
That is the entire shift. It's moving from trying to get validation by conquering a difficult person to creating your own peace by making conscious choices. The power is in your hands. The pattern only has as much power as you give it by continuing to tolerate it.
That was an incredibly thorough breakdown of how these patterns work. Let's just pull together the absolute key takeaways for everyone listening.
Okay, number 1. Remember the difference between chemistry and compatibility. Chemistry often just signals anxiety. Compatibility is quieter and grows over time. When you feel those butterflies, ask if it's excitement or if it's your alarm system going off.
Number 2, stop falling in love with potential. Behavior is the only thing that builds a relationship. You have to stop loving the idea of someone's future while you suffer in their present reality.
And finally, the most important one, the pattern breaks when you change what you tolerate. It's not about finding the perfect person. It's about becoming a person who will no longer accept the dynamics that cause you pain. And that might mean being alone for a little while.
I think the sources give us such an important piece of reassurance here, too. You don't keep falling for the wrong people because you're broken or something is wrong with you. You do it because you're human, and these emotional patterns are just incredibly powerful. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness.
And awareness changes everything. As the source material says so perfectly, awareness is the first step. And once you see the pattern, you no longer have to live inside it.
Which brings us to our final thought, the homework for you to take away from this deep dive.
So for this week, I want you to practice finding that feeling of unfamiliar peace. I want you to think back on your relationships. Can you identify one small, quiet moment of stability or genuine peace that you previously dismissed? Maybe you overlooked it or even pushed it away because it didn't feel dramatic enough. Find that memory. Sit with that feeling of quiet. And ask yourself, was that feeling truly boring? Or was it just the sound of your anxiety finally taking a long, long overdue break? Because right there, in that quiet, is where your new pattern begins.
That commitment to the quiet is where the freedom is. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. Go apply what you've learned, and we'll see you next time.